Hello everyone and welcome back to our course on developing mobile applications with Android Studio and Kotlin. I am Dr. Selvi Rajendran and in today's session we are going to explore something absolutely essential, the anatomy of an Android application. Before you run your applications, you should be aware of the few directories and the files in the Android project. Before we start building our dream applications, we need to understand the body structure of an Android applications. What makes it alive, what parts it has, and how they work together. So the first one is Java. So this contains a .java source file for your project. By default, it includes in main activity.java source file, having an activity class that runs when your application is launched using the app icon. Second one is res drawable. So this is a directory for the drawable object that are designed for high density screens. Third is res and layout source file. So this is a directory for the files that define your application user interfaces. Fourth one is resource and the option is values. So this is a directory for other various XML files that contain the collection of resources such as strings and colors definitions. And fifth one is Android manifest.xml. So this is a manifest file which describes the fundamental characteristics of the applications and it defines each of its components. And the sixth one is build.gradle. So this is an auto-generated file which contains a compile SDK version and build tool version and application SDK version, target SDK version and version code and version name. So next we'll have a brief discussion on the important applications files in the Android project. So the first one is about Android manifest.xml. So whatever the component you develop as a part of your application, you must declare all its components in a manifest.xml. So which it resides at the root of the application project directory, and this file work as a interface between Android operating system and your application. So if you do not declare your component in this file, then it will not be considered by the operating system. See, for example, a default manifest file will look like as a following file. Like every Android application has a manifest file called Android manifest.xml. It tells the Android operating system who you are, so that your package name should be given, and it lists what permissions you need. For example, if you need the internet access or camera access or GPS services, that all should be provided here. Then next is it declares what components your application contains, like activities, services, broadcast receivers and content providers. And it also specifies which activity should launch first. That is called as your launcher activity. Without the manifest, the operating system would not even recognize your application exists. The first statement in that manifest XML file is XML declaration. So that is the first statement. Okay. So here XML version is equal to 1.0 and encoding is equal to UTF-8. Okay. So this simply says we have using the XML version 1.0 and the text is encoded in UTF-8. So which supports most languages and symbols. And the second part is manifest root tag. So here actually, so we have to give a root elements of a manifest file. Then the third option is application tag. So here applications, so we have used the two tag like applications and closed by the applications tags enclose the components related to the applications, and the attribute Android icon will point to the application icon available under the resource and drawable section. So this application uses the image named the IC launching.png, so which is located in the drawable folders, and the activity tag is used to specify an activity, and the Android name attributes specify the fully qualified class name of the activity subclass, and the Android label attributes specify the string to use as a label for the activity. So you can specify the multiple attributes using the activity tag. So here the action for the intent filter is named Android intent action main to indicate that this activity serves as a entry point for the application. So, the category for the intent filter is named android.intent.category then launcher. So, this will indicate that the applications can be launched from the device launcher icon. The string refers to the strings.xml file. So, that is explained here. Hence, string application name refers to the application name string, so which is defined in the string.xml file, which is hello world. Similar way, other strings get populated in the application. So, following is a list of tags which you will use in your manifest file to specify different Android application components. First one is activity. So, elements for which will be used for elements for the activities. Second, service. So, these are used for represent the elements for the services. Then third is receiver. So, this is used to represent the elements for the broadcast receivers. And finally, we have a provider, and this is used for representing the elements for the content providers. And second file is main activity file. So, the main activity code is the Java file. It will be stored as a main activity Java. So, this is an actual application file which is ultimately gets converted into the Dalvik executable and runs your applications. So, following is the default code generated by the application wizard for the Hello World application. Here r.layout.activity main refers to the activity main.xml file, which will be located in the resource section and the layout folder. So, the on create method is one of the many methods that are figured when the activity is loaded. Then third one is about the strings file. So, the strings.xml file is located in the resource sections and the value folder, and it contains all the text that your application uses. For example, the names of the button, label, default text and similar type of the strings. So, go into this file. So, this file is responsible for their textual content. For example, a default strings file will look like this following file. Resources, under the resource sections, we have a string name of application name, hello world. So, here we are representing hello world as a string. Then second one is a hello world. This is also the string. So, this is about the string file. Then fourth is layout file. The activity main.xml is a layout file available in the resource section under the layout directory. So, that is referenced by your applications when building its interface. So, you will modify this file very frequently to change the layout of your applications. So, for your Hello World application, this file will have a following content related to the default layout. See for example, so this is an example file which has been generated by the layout. So, this is an example of a simple relative layout which will be studied in the separate chapter, and the text view is an Android control used to build the graphical user interface, and it have a various attributes like Android layout width, Android layout height, etc. So, which are being used to set its width and height. So, the string refers to the strings.xml file. So, located in the resource under the values folder. So, hence a string, and hello world refers to the hello string defined in the string.xml file. So, which is hello world. So, then next we will explore about how to run the simple applications. So, let us try to run our hello world simple applications we just created. I assume you had created your own AVD while doing the environment setup. To run the applications from the Android Studio, so open one of your project activity files and click the Run Eclipse Run icon from the toolbar. Android Studio installs the applications on your AVD and starts it if everything is fine with your setup and applications. Then it will display the following emulator window. Then finally, so you have created your own Android applications. Congratulations, you have developed your first Android application. So, next we will see how to organize the resources in Android Studio. There are many more items which you use to build the good Android applications. Apart from the coding for the applications, you take care of the various other resources like static content that your code uses, such as bitmaps, colors, layout definitions, user interfaces. strings, animations, instructions and more. So, these resources are always maintained separately in the various subdirectories under the resource directory of the project. So, this session will explain you how you can organize your application resources, specify the alternate resources and access them from your applications. So, the first one is about the animation XML file. So, this will define the property animations. So, they are saved under the folder of resource and animation folder. So, this can be accessed from the r.animation class. Then second one is color XML files. So, that define the state of various list of colors. They are saved in resource and color folder and accessed from the r.color class. And third one is drawable image files. So, here we have a list of files like .png, .jpeg, .gif or XML files. So, that are compiled into bitmaps and state list, shape, animation drawable. So, they are saved in the folder of under the directory of resource and drawable folder. So, these can be accessed from the r.drawable class. Then fourth is layout. So, these kind of the XML files that define the user interface layout, they are saved in a section of resource under the folder of layout and accessed from the r.layout class. And fifth component is menu XML files that define the applications menu such as the options menu, context menu or submenu. They are saved in the folder of resource under the section of menu and these can be accessed from the r.menu class. And the next one is raw. So, these are the arbitrary files to save in their raw form. So, here you have to call the resources open raw resources with the resource ID which is r.raw file name to open such the raw files. The next one is values XML files. So, that contain the simple values such as strings, integers and colors. And eighth component is XML, arbitrary XML files. So, that can be read at the runtime by calling the resources .getXML. So, you can save the various configuration files here which will be used at runtime. So, next we will have a brief discussion on application component. The Android framework defines 4 building blocks. So, the first one is activities. So, these represent the screens. In Kotlin, you will usually extend the app component activity. Then second one is services. So, these components that run in the background like music, playback or data synchronization. And third is broadcast receivers. So, they listen for the system-wide messages like a battery low or network change. And fourth is content providers. So, they manage the shared data such as contact or media. Okay. For example, when you open the Instagram, the activity shows your feed. Our background service fetches a new post. Our broadcast receivers detect the network status changes. And the next important file is Gradle script or the recipe books for your applications. So, here you specify the SDK version, dependency and build configurations. So, when you click run button, the Gradle compiles everything into a APK or AAB package. So, putting it together, the manifest declares your application to the system. So, components are your application functional parts and resources give it a look, feel and voice. Gradle ensure everything is built correctly. So, remember, understanding the anatomy of Android application is not just a theory, it is a blueprint for everything you will build. So, alright, now let's move on to our next topic, deploying Android applications on a USB connected Android device. So, now it's time to bring our creation to the life by running it on a real Android devices connected via the USB cable.